Hi, I'm Bill Bennett. Welcome to Hometown TV's series on Spotlight on the Candidates. And we're joined by another one of the candidates running for office in Berkeley Heights. And we'll be talking to Linda Weber here for the next little while, giving you a chance to get to know her, also understand what she thinks are the key issues for the voters of Berkeley Heights, and help you understand a little bit about her positions on those issues, and let you know why she thinks you should consider voting for her when the elections come up in early November. Her running mate, Stephen Yellen, will also be a part of this program a little bit later on, but we're going to interview both Linda and Stephen individually, so you get a chance to know them up front and up close and personal, so to speak. So, Linda, welcome.
Thank you, Bill.
How are you today?
I'm terrific. How are you?
Good, good, thanks. So, appreciate your taking the time out here to be with us and to kind of share yourself and your views with the voters of Berkeley Heights in this case. And let me start by asking you, tell us a little bit about yourself, just in a general biographic sense. Tell us about Linda Weber.
Sure. Well, first, let me say thank you, Bill, for having us here, and thank you to the voters of Berkeley Heights who are taking the time to watch this program. I think it's incredibly important in a representative democracy that we all be informed, and you're investing the time to do that. So I personally appreciate that as a candidate for office in Berkeley Heights. First of all, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a business executive, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a senior vice president of Midtown Manhattan Bank, and I'm also founder of a t-shirt company about 9 months ago, give or take. I am a resident and a taxpayer in Berkeley Heights as well. In fact, I pay a lot of taxes in Berkeley Heights, like many of us. I have bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of Rochester, which is where I met my husband. And in fact, my master's degree is in public policy analysis, so I have quite an analytical background and have always worked with the numbers, so to speak. I've said I'm a mom. I have 2 teenage boys, one at Columbia Middle School and one at the high school, Governor Livingston. And, you know, I've been involved in community affairs for a long time, as has my husband. We've been involved in the soccer and basketball leagues, the PTOs, and this year I'm privileged to be the chairperson for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life in Berkeley Heights, New Providence, and Summit. And I think it's important to donate our time to nonprofits as well as government service, and so I look forward to chatting with you today.
Good. Well, that sounds like a pretty full agenda throughout the course of your life and up to now, so thanks for sharing that with us. Let's bridge, although there seems as if even early in your college days you had a glimmering that you might someday end up in this environment with that public policy degree, but here you are. Tell us a little bit about how you decided to enter Berkeley Heights politics and run for the council.
Well, I think in towns across the country for the next few years, the financial situation is going to be very strained and very difficult. I bring decades of business experience, starting businesses, turning businesses around, and I really believe that this was the year where my expertise and my experience probably could be most valuable to the town. You know, if we ran a business like we run our towns, not just in Berkeley Heights, but in many places across the country, we'd have trouble keeping those businesses alive. And I really believe that there are opportunities to take a much more critical eye to our budgeting process, to our contracts, and I bring a lot of that experience and expertise, and this seemed like kind of the perfect storm. It's a good time in my life. It's a good time, I think, for the town. And with the financial situation as it is, you know, I was willing to step up and really lend my, like I said, experience and expertise to solving the town's problems going forward.
Yeah, it's quite an undertaking. Any surprises for you in the early going?
Any surprises? Well, I would say the campaigning is harder than I thought it was going to be. It has been a thrill, though, meeting a lot of, I do know a lot of people in town, but not everyone, obviously. So it has been a real thrill to meet a lot of the other residents, to hear about the issues and how they feel about the issues. Yeah, so the surprise, I guess, is that it's probably more work than I originally anticipated.
Yeah. My dad ran for local politics when I was a youngster. I remember tacking up posters on telephone poles when I was 5 or 6. So I have a
I'll bet you
vague
stuffed a
memory
few
of
envelopes,
that. I did do a little envelope stuffing as well. So now you're in and running.
Yes.
By the way, I think on behalf of the citizens of Berkeley Heights, we thank you and all the candidates who are dedicated and willing enough to spend your time and energy to help us run our town and our community. So on behalf of all the voters, to you and to all of your fellow candidates, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get into the issues. You alluded a little bit in your comments a moment ago about the issues, but what do you see as the biggest issues facing the voters of Berkeley Heights in the upcoming election and in the year or two beyond the election?
I think that unquestionably the biggest issue is the budget and the problems that we face with our budget situation, the financial situation. Berkeley Heights taxpayers spend millions and millions of dollars. They send millions and millions of dollars to Trenton in the form of income taxes and in the form of sales taxes. We used to get some of that money back, both to our town, our township government, as well as to our school district. This past year, it became clear that Trenton isn't going to send that money back to us anymore. And we are going to have to look very critically and in some innovative ways at how we're going to solve our budget problems. Every budget has two sides, whether it's your personal budget at home or running a business. You have revenue and you have expenses. What we've done this past year as I watched the council go through the budgeting process is we really focused very hard on cutting expenses. And whether or not they cut expenses in the right places is an argument for another day, and I will be a part of that next year, I certainly hope. However, they didn't spend any time, at least in the public eye, they didn't spend any time analyzing, thinking about, being creative around any new sources of revenue. So I think while it's important to cut expenses where we can going forward, and I certainly, as being probably one of the highest taxpayers in Berkeley Heights, I certainly don't want to pay any more taxes. So I think we need to be more efficient in our government. We need to look for opportunities for shared services. And in fact, I'm calling for a comprehensive review of all services in town to see where else we can share with other towns. Certainly, trucks and courts are a great place to start, and that is where we share today. But there are probably many, many more opportunities, and we need to do a comprehensive review of all services. However, that's on the expense side. On the revenue side is where I think we need to be innovative and we need to be more forward-thinking. And we need to consider the ramifications of our actions on today, but we also need to consider what that means for the future for the taxpayers of the town. In that vein, I think we need to look at the town's assets and think about how we can leverage the assets that we have in our wonderful town. In particular, I had the privilege of being able to tour the wastewater treatment plant recently. It's an amazing asset in our town. And it's one of those assets that if it's running well, no one notices. But if it's running poorly, everyone notices in a bad way. It's running pretty well right now, and nobody's really noticing. But that asset can be leveraged for cogeneration, energy cogeneration in the future. And we need to be looking at that and studying that and analyzing that now for a couple of reasons. Number one, it does save money when we get to that point because we can run our own town buildings and our school buildings off of the energy provided by that plant. Number two, we can sell the energy back to the grid from that plant. There's the revenue source. So we need to look at all the components of our budget, look at all the assets that the town has, and really think more creatively and innovatively about how to leverage those to really keep the tax burden down on the residents of our town. Another idea that I have, and I'm probably not the first one to have this, but I will be the first one to push it hard, is to look at developing a business improvement district or development improvement district in our town. New Providence has done it, and they're having wonderful success. We have a lot of empty storefronts, and a lot of them brand new, and they're very pretty, but they're empty. We can't generate additional tax revenue from those businesses until there are businesses in there actually driving their own revenue. And we need to bring the business people who are successful in our town together in a collaborative way to figure out how we can bring more businesses to our town. So those are some of the ideas, some of the problems that we face, and some of the ideas that I have to try and solve them.
Is it something that you feel you need to inspect once you're in office, or something that you've given enough thought to already to say, Bill, in the area of shared services, here are some additional ones that come to mind for us to take a hard look at, above and beyond the ones that are currently planned?
Well, there are two that are currently under analysis that have not been approved, and one is the police department, and the other is, of course, the emergency dispatch possible sharing with Summit and New Providence. I think when it comes to the police departments, we have to be very careful. Public safety is kind of first and foremost in everyone's mind. In fact, I tell my children, it doesn't matter, I love you, but it doesn't matter how much I love you if I can't keep you safe. So we need to keep the residents of our town safe first and foremost. But it should be looked at, and it should be understood that if we make the decision not to combine police departments, why we're choosing not to do that. In terms of the emergency dispatch, I think there's probably some great opportunity there. I would caution, there have been a number of studies done and they have thrown out some cautions. Some folks have looked at those critically, and I think that we need to be more public in our analysis of that endeavor to figure out how to do it. It's probably right to do it, but we need to figure out how to do it to make sure it is successful and make sure it does save the money that all three towns are planning on it to save. In terms of other services, I think we need to do some more analysis. Whether it's vehicles in the town or the recreation department in the town, I don't want to jump to conclusions without being a little bit more on the inside to say how are things really run and where is there an opportunity, not just to save money, but to either save money and keep the level of service that we have, or potentially even improve the level of service, because by sharing things we may be able to make more with less. So to answer your question more directly, there are a couple that I think are on the table right now, and then there are a few that we're going to need to look at more so going forward. Again, I think there needs to be a comprehensive review. We need to take every department in the town and say, what are the functions and which of these can possibly be shared? And then be creative about how we negotiate with local towns. We have some sharing right now with New Providence, some with Long Hill. There may be opportunities with other towns that we haven't initially considered.
Okay. Well, we're actually, as time is flying by for me over here, hopefully agreeably so for you as well, we're down to our final couple of minutes here. So as I promised you before we went on the air, and I do this with each candidate, I'm going to let you talk directly to the voters of Berkeley Heights and tell them why they should consider voting for you.
To the voters of Berkeley Heights, again, thank you very much for spending the time to educate yourselves about the candidates in this race. I think it's incredibly important, and I thank you. We can't continue business as usual in our town. Clearly, the economy has changed. Trenton's relationship with the local townships has changed. And we all don't have the same kind of money flowing in general that perhaps we used to even a few years ago. Berkeley Heights has come upon some difficult times. Some families are stinging from the loss of jobs and income. Seniors, many of them can't pay the continuing increases in property taxes. I believe that all of your elected officials have a fiduciary duty to do the best that they can with your money and my money. And I believe that for the town, as much as I believe it for the companies that I've worked for, where I've had a fiduciary duty to manage well, to perform well, and to use the company's money well. There's no difference for town. We have a fiduciary duty to manage your money well. My business background, my experience managing successful turnarounds, which this is exactly what we need in Berkeley Heights. And I bring that to the table this year for all of you. And I would very much appreciate your vote on November 2nd. That's what you deserve. A strong government, a good government, and someone who has a responsibility and a real in-depth knowledge of that responsibility to manage your money well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. And on behalf of the voters again, this is great for us to get a chance to really understand what you stand for, what you're running for, and what you hope to do for Berkeley Heights. So let me wrap up our discussion today by saying thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this information with me and the voters. And that concludes this interview with Linda, and you'll hear from her running mate in the next segment. Thank you.